Gotham Sharma, thanks very much for joining me today.
Hey, good to be here. Thank you.
How often? Is this your first time in cybertech?
I think I was here last year, or whatever the last one was. It's hard to keep track of time, but I've been to one before here in New York City.
What's your take on the industry as a whole? And maybe you can tell me what you do as well.
Yeah, so I involved in a couple of different ways in cybersecurity. I run something called Access Cyber. Access Cyber, we're the leading digital publication focused on career, technology, cybersecurity, career, training, and education resources. So we want to help people get into the industry. And it's such a nebulous area. How do we figure it out? How do we break in? And so we want to make that process a little bit simpler.
And it's so interesting you mentioned that it's really, at least I see it as a matter of national security. There's a lack of qualified individuals in the space. It seems like there's always this headline news, but yet it seems like a lot of people are getting trained, but they have difficulties in getting kind of the first real role. Talk to me about this a bit.
Yeah, you hit it on the head. I think there's so many thoughts about even, is cyber an entry-level role? We haven't even answered that question yet, number one. So there's so many different challenges at that point. The requirements are incredibly difficult sometimes, right? I tweeted something recently, and it was just a unicorn of a job description, 10 years experience for an entry-level role, PhD, master's, all the certs. We can't expect to find candidates like that, right? The wish list that employers have at this point is really incredible. It's nutty, which is contributing to this gap that we have and making organizations insecure and overall contributing to national security, as you pointed out.
And I got to tell you, it's always been like this, always. When I graduated computer science years ago, and I was applying for jobs, they wanted Java experience for like 10 years, and Java was only around for 2. And also they wanted somebody who can lift 200 pounds, work shift work, and do all of that for $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And I always said it's not the lack of qualified individuals, is the explosion of requirements. Why so many years later are employers still writing these job descriptions that don't make sense?
Really good question. I think part of it is where employers are getting inspiration for job descriptions from other job descriptions. They're like, all right, what is this other bank hiring? Maybe we're a bank, we should be hiring similar roles. And what that's creating is this circular echo chamber of really, no one's coming up with the real requirements anymore. People want the best, but we haven't identified what that means, right? We think maybe a degree will make you better, or all these certs will make you better, or we don't know what best looks like. There's no shortage, and you alluded to this a little bit, of people who want to do a great job, who are passionate about this work. I work with a number of students who are out here today, and they really want to be working in this industry, and some of them are very talented. But now it's up to the organizations to kind of give them a chance and consider non-traditional talent.
And I always said, well, not just me, but I think other people that are smarter than me, saying that you hire for the job they want, not the job they had. Mm-hmm. And aptitude is more important sometimes than credentials and so on. How do you, somebody who's an educator and is trying to get these people to get kind of the first job, how do you, in your opinion, is the best way to measure that aptitude and ability to do well in that position?
Yeah, really good question. So we have a number of things like competitions that are doing a great job, right? We have CTF performance. Certifications are nice because at least at the entry level, they can kind of help you stand out a little bit from the crowd and other candidates. Projects are always great. Home labs, right? It used to be very expensive to set up a home lab, you know this. And now it's gotten with cloud software, virtualization software, free tools, it's become very easy to kind of spin that up on a budget. So being able to see, are you working on these things? Are you, passion is thrown around all the time, but do you have an interest in this industry? Because that's going to go a long way.
Yeah. You can set up a pretty serious home network with little or no budget. And also a lot of companies are giving away those like old servers as well. Let me ask you this. We see a lot of automation in this space. Automation orchestration, where it's all about doing more with less. And as somebody who's a new graduate or somebody who's just training for this, you want to just skate to where the puck is going to be, know where the puck is right now. In your opinion, what would be like very much in demand in the next 3 to 5 years?
Good question. Again, a lot of good questions. that prediction, if I was able to predict that way, it'd be a very rich man. The idea is
Well,
very good.
and this is recorded, so
Yeah.
I'll hold you responsible for 5 years from now. We'll do this again.
Sub, like I was so off. You know, we got to think buzzwords, right? Buzzwords are annoying, but they are indicative of something. We talk about the metaverse, right? I'm not the first person to say this. I'd like to see, and I think we'll see this in the coming years, sort of an MISP cert, Metaverse Infrastructure Security Professional. I can see that very much so, right? If the metaverse is going to take off at the rate and scale, we haven't even defined it yet, but I'm kind of bullish on that. There are a couple of companies doing blockchain certifications, right? We understand how blockchain works, coming under a little bit fire these days for a number of reasons, but we understand the technology behind it, and now we're trying to figure out how do we secure some of this stuff. So we're talking about, do we build security in or do we bolt it on, right? It's that argument, again, age-old argument. Whatever technologies are coming up, you can just add security to the end of that. Blockchain security, metaverse security. So I think that's a good framework for it, without me making any real Nostradamus-like predictions.
It's so interesting as well is that what I found when I interview people that are just getting into the space, it's what they don't know that really matters, in the sense that there are so many different roles within the cybersecurity space, and you alluded to some that I didn't even know they existed. I've been in this industry for a long time. How does someone who is just getting into space knows what's out there in terms of roles? Because there's just so many, and there's a lot of misconception. You don't necessarily have to be super well versed in math, in engineering, and in STEM, right? That's also a misconception. Talk to me about that.
I agree. I think math has been kind of the bane of my existence as a student. It was for sure, and I know a lot of students now feel that way. And math was sort of this arbitrary barrier to getting into tech. It didn't really, there was no correlation, very little correlation. I think the history of that comes from when computer science came out. We just lumped it, give it to the math guys. They know computers, they're the nerds, they're the geeks, let's make it their problem. And we're seeing that with cyber. Cyber is being lumped under, at least in universities, oftentimes under computer science. But it's its own thing, as we know, right? It's so interdisciplinary, so multidisciplinary, and it's not just something it shouldn't be treated as a subset of computer science. That's one of the problems I'm seeing. There's another part of your question, I missed it.
Just in terms of knowing what's out there, because if you look at traditional training, for example, there's, let's say, boot camp, there's pen testing academy, there's just traditional roles that everybody knows about in terms of security. But there's just so much more to it. You can be, for example, a technical writer, somebody who does write the manuals for cybersecurity products. But there's no category, and if you don't know about it, how would you be able to be well and get trained on it so you become successful in that role and even get the first role, because you don't even know what to apply to?
Yeah, so I think a couple of things come in there. One of the things I'm seeing, when people think about cybersecurity, think about hacking, think about the pen testing stuff, and that's really our SOC analysts. These three roles maybe come up pretty often, but beyond that, people are a little confused, right? What else is there?
Right.
A number of companies put out a number of great lists of what those jobs look like. So one area that I'm seeing a huge demand for, GRC, governance, risk, compliance. It's, I don't want to call it non-technical, but it's a little bit more for folks who are not necessarily interested in the actual, I don't want to be a pen tester, right? But what else exists, right? I have a background in maybe things that I can connect to GRC. Maybe I have an auditing background, right? Maybe I have a policy background, and I can bring those skills to the security world where we desperately need them.
Yeah, and you are a trainer. You train people in cybersecurity. What do you find is the most effective from a training perspective? Because a lot of people have different training styles. In order for them to really become proficient, it requires a lot of hands-on experience and so on. What do you find is most successful? And I'm also assuming that a lot of it is self-learning. It's not just about you delivering a presentation. Somebody has to go in and apply it on their own. What do you find the most successful in terms of training to get people to where they need to be attractive to an employer?
Yeah, so only so much can happen in the classroom, right? We have only so many hours in a day where you can deliver content and deliver instruction, but it's, if I have a group of 20 students, which one of them become successful and which one of them kind of don't make it in the industry are the ones putting the time after hours, right? So whether you're on these platforms, right? There's a number of platforms now, the Try Hack Me's, the Hack the Boxes. What are you doing? Are you kind of using that? Are you articulating what you're doing? Because I also have a number of people working on a ton of cool projects, but they're not really articulating on posting or sharing about it. And so if no one knows about it, if you're doing it in your own kind of silo, that's also, I don't want to say wasted, because knowledge is never wasted, but it's not serving a marketing purpose. So I think that's so important, right? Being able to understand the skills, but also how do I pitch myself and make myself an attractive candidate to employers.
And somebody said to me that it's what happens after hours that really matters. So and I think it's true for every industry. So how do people find you? You mentioned you're responsible for publication, academy, and so on. What's the easiest way for people to reach out to you?
Yeah, Twitter, I'm Gotham J. Sharma. Our website is accesscyber.co. That's ACCESSCYBER.co.
Awesome, and maybe LinkedIn handle?
LinkedIn, Gotham J. Sharma, or Gotham Sharma on LinkedIn.
Thank you very much, Gotham, for coming over and spending time with us.
Thanks so much.